In the grimy, smoke-choked heart of a 19th-century industrial town, the Smith family forge was a kingdom of fire and steel. It was a world of blistering heat, the constant, deafening clang of the hammer, and the sacred honor of hard, physical labor. For 19-year-old Thomas, however, this kingdom was a prison. He was the blacksmith's son, a young man with his father's strength in his arms, but with a dreamer's soul that yearned for a different world, a clean world of books, of soft hands, of a life that wasn't measured in sweat and soot. His father, Mr. Smith, was a titan of a man, the master blacksmith whose skill and integrity were the bedrock of their family's reputation. He saw the forge not as a prison, but as a crucible where character was forged alongside iron. He saw his son's disdain for the family trade, and it was a quiet, constant source of disappointment. The day of the reckoning began with a simple yet crucial task. A large contract for the new railway had come in, and Mr. Smith needed every tool in the forge sharpened to a razor's edge. It was a tedious, unglamorous, but vital job. He entrusted it to Thomas. "The grinders are ready," he had said, his voice a low rumble over the din of the forge. "I need every chisel, every plane, every blade finished by day's end. The whole contract depends on it. Do you understand your duty, son?" Thomas had simply nodded, his eyes already distant. The moment his father left to meet with the railway foreman, the rebellion began. He looked at the mountain of dull, oiled steel. He looked at his own hands, which he tried so hard to keep clean, and he made a choice. He wiped the grime from his brow, shed his heavy leather apron, and slipped out the back of the forge. He escaped to the town square, the one place he felt he could breathe. It was a world of well-dressed merchants, of ladies with parasols, of a life he craved. He sat on a bench, pulled a tattered book of poetry from his coat, and for a few blissful hours, he was no longer a blacksmith's boy. He was a scholar, a gentleman, a man of thoughts, not of sweat. Back at the forge, the fires burned low. Mr. Smith returned in the late afternoon, expecting to find the work well underway. Instead, he found an abandoned workstation. The grindstones were cold and still. The mountain of dull tools sat untouched, a silent testament to his son's defiance. He didn't need to search. He knew exactly where to find him. He walked to the town square, not bothering to wipe the soot from his face or arms. He was a large, powerful, intimidating figure, and the well-dressed merchants gave him a wide berth. He found Thomas on the bench, lost in his book, a world away. The blacksmith did not shout. He did not run. He simply walked up and stood in front of his son, his massive frame blocking the afternoon sun. Thomas, feeling the sudden chill, looked up from his book. His leisurely afternoon, his fantasy of a different life, was shattered by the sight of his father's face. It was a mask of cold, quiet, and absolute fury. Mr. Smith said only one word, his voice a low, dangerous command that promised a reckoning. Home. The walk back to the forge was a silent march of shame. Thomas trailed behind his father, the book of poetry feeling like a lead weight in his pocket. Each step took him away from his daydream and back to the hard, grimy reality he so despised. The forge was dark and quiet now, the fires banked for the night. His father lit a single lantern, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. He didn't speak. He walked over to the abandoned workstation and picked up a single, dull chisel. "This," he began, his voice a low, controlled rumble, "is the tool that has fed you your entire life. This is the steel that has clothed you, that has kept a roof over your head. The work you find so beneath you is the only reason you have the luxury of sitting on a park bench and reading your books. And you have shown it, and me, nothing but contempt." "I'm sorry, father," Thomas whispered, his head bowed. This life isn't for me. This life is your duty." His father thundered, his voice finally exploding with the full force of his frustration. "It is your heritage. You think a man is defined by the softness of his hands? A man is defined by his word. You gave me your word you would do this work, and you broke it. You have behaved like a lazy, deceitful boy, and that is a debt that must be paid. He turned and strode to the great bellows that fed the main forge. Hanging from a hook was a thick, heavy leather strap, used for mending the bellows but known in the family as the ultimate tool of correction. It was a symbol of his father's absolute authority. You have shamed the name of this forge, he said, his voice now grim with a sad resolve. You have disrespected your father and your own duty. You require a lesson in the honor of honest work. You will bend over that anvil. The anvil. The very heart of the forge, a massive, unyielding block of iron where metal was beaten into submission. The symbolism was not lost on Thomas. With his heart pounding and tears of humiliation burning his eyes, he did as he was told. The cold, hard surface of the anvil, a brutal reality against his hands. The first strike of the heavy leather strap was a loud, explosive crack that echoed through the cavernous forge. A bolt of pure, unadulterated pain shot through him, a fire that seemed to sear him to his very soul. He cried out, his body lurching against the anvil. That, his father's voice said, firm and clear, is for your laziness. Crack. The second blow was even harder, a powerful, humbling lesson. That is for your disrespect. After a firm and memorable strapping that left Thomas sobbing with shame and regret, his father stopped. Your punishment is not finished, he said, his voice returning to its quiet authority. Now, your work begins. He lit the main forge, the flames roaring to life, casting a hellish glow on the walls. You will not sleep tonight, he commanded. You will stand at that grindstone, and you will sharpen every single one of these tools. You will complete the duty you abandoned. The night was the longest of Thomas's life. His backside ached with a fiery, intense sting, his eyes were blurry with tears, and his arms grew heavy with exhaustion. But he worked. Under his father's silent, watchful eye, he held each tool to the spinning stone, the spray of sparks illuminating his tear-streaked, soot-covered face, and as he worked, something began to shift inside him. He felt the familiar weight of each tool, the way it was balanced for a master's hand. He saw the beauty in the sharp, clean edge that emerged from the dull, worn steel. He was not just sharpening tools. He was connecting with the work, with the legacy of his father, and his father before him in the cold, pre-dawn hours. As he finished the very last chisel, his father, who had not left his side all night, came forward with 2 mugs of hot, strong tea. They sat together on a wooden bench, the newly sharpened tools gleaming in the first light of dawn. They didn't speak for a long time. Then, his father put a heavy, calloused hand on his shoulder. The world needs men who read books, son, he said quietly. But it is built by the men who sharpen the tools. In that moment, Thomas finally understood. He had dreamed of a different life, a life he thought was better. But he had finally learned to see the honor, the strength, and the profound, simple beauty in the life he already had. The lesson had been forged in the fire of his father's discipline, and it was a lesson that would last a lifetime.